Hi, and welcome to Skagit Valley College Continuing Community Education class, Paint and Sip. My name is Katie, and this class is based on the real version, the real paint and sip parties that I teach, where we gather together with friends and create a creative social painting party. And the idea is that you relax into art and explore the pleasure and the fun of painting without having to have years of training or be graded on minimal efforts. So until we can have these painting parties again, this virtual online experience is going to be the next best thing. And so I encourage you to make this an art date for yourself and turn on music. Have some nibbles if there's treats that you like to eat. Maybe get yourself a drink. And not to put any pressure on yourself that you're not going to be graded. This is going to be to experience the fun of painting, and I'll lead you every step along the way. And I would like to share with you what one of the benefits will be from Bob Ross, the old master, who says, painting will bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. So if you have this video, you've already purchased the kit. And in your kit has come a pre-drawn canvas, a flat and a round brush, a photo of the painting and directions, so you can follow along either on your own time or with me in this recorded class. And you're also going to have a nice ultramarine blue, green, black, white, and cad yellow. Also, you're going to need a glass of water, a cheap paper plate of some kind. This is styrofoam. I like it because the water doesn't go through, but paper works fine too. And a paper towel. So without further ado, let's get started. So this painting is based on Mount Rainier. It's based on a photograph. And what we're looking at is a lovely field, the tree line, the darker tree line behind, and then the blue mountain of Mount Rainier with a bit poking behind here. And I've created kind of a soft blue sky. So what we're going to do for this is do our first layer of colors first. We're going to do a layer here, 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 and then after that we'll do layers to add all sorts of details and the glacier, details of the glacier and the tree line. So I always like to start off with things that are fairly simple and straightforward. So I'm going to start off with the blue, and I'm going to paint the mountain blue. Okay, and I'm going to paint from here to the green area. So I'm going to use my flat brush, and if your paint's a little thick, dip it into a little bit of water to get it flowing better. And simply paint that whole area blue. And I hold the edge of my brush. It's a wonderful flat, so I can get right up close to the lines of the snow and keep it crisp. And you want to avoid seeing white through your paint like that. So I like to go over it until it's nice and filled in a nice rich blue color. Sometimes I outline along the edges like that, and then just do the filling in of the main part, and that way I won't go outside my lines. Back and forth, creating a really rich, lovely blue You want that nice and smooth. Okay, I'm going to add a little more. I really want that blue to be rich. There we go. This down here is where the tree line will be. And there's going to be some dark trees coming up against the blue. So it's not as totally careful it is. You don't need the line quite as precise as you do up here with the glacier. And these are acrylics, and they're lovely because they dry really quickly, and so you can do layers on top of them very quickly. And if you make any mistakes, you can wipe it off with either with your paper towel, or you can let it dry and then paint right over the top again. So they're very forgiving that way. And there's no need for turpentine or special cleanser. You just rinse in water. Okay, so now I have that first blue laid down. And when I rinse, I like to rinse down several times. And one of the tricks that I always do is I always use paper underneath, and I paint on the paper to see if I have any residue of the color, and I don't. This brush is clean. If it is, you can also, I had a little bit right there, so I just wiped it off with my paper towel. Because you never want the colors to mix unless you're trying to do it on purpose. And in this case, I don't. So, the next color I'm going to do is just this straightforward green, and that is going to go here for this tree line here. This is just the base. So I'm going to paint this green. And there will be several layers on top of this green. But I do the same technique where I line it up to the blue line, kind of outlining, and then fill it in. This is my, this is my horizon line. So I want it nice and straight, follow that line. Okay. So I fill all that green paint in. And as you can tell, this green doesn't cover quite as well as that blue, but that's okay because we're going to add more colors to it. And because my horizon line here, whoops, I'm going to just mark that off, got a little wobbly, I just take my paper towel and wipe, okay? Now, I'm being a little bit casual about it, but that's because I know that this is green too, okay? And all these places where green and dark meet, it's not supposed to be super ultra precise line work. So it's okay. Okay, so add a little more green to that, let that dry. All right, and now I'm gonna do the field here, Okay, it's kind of a lovely pasture. And the way I'm going to do that is I am going to take green and I'm going to mix it with some yellow, so I make a yellow green. So I'm going to take a scoop of green, okay, and I wipe my brush off and get a scoop of yellow and just bring it here. And that way I don't contaminate these little tubs, and I can use this to mix. So what I want to do is create a beautiful yellow green that pleases me. Oh, I love that color. Oh my gosh, I love that right there. That's the color I want to use. So I am going to paint the field this lovely, bright, light green, because that's like a sun-dappled day looking up at the mountain. And as you notice, because it's a field, my brush strokes are going back and forth, back and forth. Okay, it would be weird if they were like this, because I'm not drawing grass that is going upwards. So keep your brush strokes imitating mine, because the brush strokes always show and they give direction. The texture gives direction. So I mix up a little more and continue my yellow green. Okay. That's so pretty. So it's this nice contrast. Okay. Lovely little base right there of that color. Now at this point, on the edges, you can see that it's white. So you never want to leave your edges white, because it stands out and becomes a focal point. And usually it's ragged on the edges and it just looks lame. So one choice is at the end of the painting is to paint a border around it. Just choose one color like a frame. The other idea is to extend the color to the edges and just bring the painting off. I am going to show you how to do a framed border like this painting, okay? But you can just extend it like this, if you like that look. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3 layers covered. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do is rinse my brush out really, really good. Once again, I'm gonna check to make sure there's no color on it. This one's really important because next I'm gonna be painting white, and you really, really want there to be cleanliness with white. So I'm gonna take pure white and just paint the mountaintop. Okay. There we go. And yes, it's true, you won't be able to see it dramatically different. Okay. But you're just going to follow your edge. I like to see texture, so instead of making it perfectly smooth like this, which makes it look exactly like the white canvas, I am making mine thick. And then it will dry a little bit thicker, and that gives a little more texture and makes it look a little bit more like oil painting. And gives that lovely mountainous snow texture. Oops, I got a bit of green there. So in a case like that, I would just wipe my brush really quick. And there, kind of got rid of that. No big deal. Okay, so I like it. I'm leaving texture because I want to. So that was really easy. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to do my sky. And in this painting, it is a light blue. So basically what I'm going to do is wipe my brush off. And I'm going to take a scoop of blue. Okay. And this time I'm going to rinse my brush because I am going to grab white paint and I don't want the blue to go in the white. Okay. And then I take white and I scoop it and I add it to its own category, and I mix the colors from there. So I pull white and little by little add some blue until I get a really lovely soft sky blue color. Okay. Ooh, isn't that pretty? I want it wispy and soft. So what I'm going to do is paint. And remember, you're doing sky. So sky is wispy and it does have variation in it. So I want to see some of that variation rather than making it a perfectly, completely smooth, totally flat blue like this, which you can. It's okay to have a little bit of, maybe a bit of blue in it like that. Okay, it adds just a little bit of interest to it. And it just kind of gently mixes in with the sky color. So I love to let that painterly feel come through with skies in particular. And have fun with this. This is the perfect brush. You do not want a detailed brush with that. Okay, your sky is airy and you're aiming for an airy feeling. La 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 la. See how there's a little bit of texture there. Maybe even I wanted a little more blue here. Happy little skies. Okay. And if you are a cloud person who loves clouds, try and catch your paint while it's wet and take a little bit of white and just softly move your brush like this. Don't paint up and down like a cloud shape. You just kind of let the white go across the canvas. Ooh, there we go. And I'm very, very soft on my brush here. La la la. Going back and forth. Look, there's a little cloud over Mount Rainier, which happens a lot. Okay, just letting it drag. And then if I want a little variation, I'll even put a little blue. Ooh, it's a little dark. But no worries, I just get to brush that in. And it looks natural. Now, if you're somebody who does not want to do blue skies, you could do like a sunrise. So you could do a variation of yellow, which would be lovely. Like a dark yellow that goes out to a light yellow, just kind of like as it's early sunrise. So pick your mood if you want to do that. Okay, so I like that. I like my sky. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is rinse my brush again. Dry it off. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to work on this field. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to be adding some yellow and a little bit of dark green. And what that's going to do is give variation so that it looks like it's kind of a sun-dappled field and that the trees have created, some of it has created a little bit of shadow, but it is this lovely variation rather than being a green stripe, because that's just what this looks right here. So I am going to mix up some different variations of green. So I'm going to mix up green with, I'm going to use straight green. I'm going to mix up some more green with a little bit of yellow. Okay, but a slightly different than that other green. Okay, so there's, if you can tell, there's dark green, medium green, and then that's more of a really yellowy green. And what I'm going to do is just start brushing my brush back and forth and adding irregularly, not in a super completely straight line, but just adding some variation to this. And I'm adding layers on top of it so that it looks different than just a flat line. So I take some of that medium shade and I'm going to take some of the dark green and I'm going to do the same thing, just brush it across, letting my brush drag. Okay, so it looks a little bit darker in some places. And once again, if you feel like you get it too dark, you can just wipe it off. But it's really fun to see, to look with your eyes and just see if you can appreciate how the variation lets different elements of light and dark through. Okay, there we go. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this yellow on top, okay? So it looks like sun and also a combination of kind of some like buttercups in the field. So I'm going to dip my brush straight into yellow, and I'm going to drag it across, adding just a straight shot of yellow across the field. Once again, I'm just letting it drag. I'm not trying to mix it in. And holding that brush so light. Okay. Now that paint's pretty wet, so it keeps wanting to blend. Wet on wet paint wants to just blend. Okay. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger, because I want to create a little bit more. And I'm going to dab, okay? And I'm just going to softly, I love the feeling and the texture of paint on my finger because I feel like I can control it. So I'm not afraid to add a little bolder yellow to that. And I just dip straight into the yellow paint. And if I want to do flowers, I can even just tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. And you can see there's a raised texture, which I like, that you could never get that kind of texture with a brush. There's things that your fingers can do that are very satisfying. And then mush it if I like it. Okay, so there is a field. This one's a little bit brighter than the one I painted originally. And I like it this way. This is also lighter, I've noticed. So now the next thing I'm going to do is transform this kind of boring green blob area to trees. And the way that I'm going to do that is trees are the combination here of the general shape, and then behind I have really, really dark, tall evergreens. And then there's blotches of yellow. So it's green, lighter yellow, and black, and a dark green that makes up all of this textured tree information. So I'm going to do something similar that I did to here, except this time I am going to pull a little bit of black to my plate here, and I'm going to grab a little more green for my mixing palette. And I'm going to mix up, I've got straight green here with no mixing, and then I'm going to mix up a green over here that has some black to it. So I have a nice dark green. Okay, ooh, I like that. So I have dark green, medium green, and I have my original light green. But you know what? Mine has already dried, so I am going to make some more. Scoop some yellow. Okay. Medium, light, and dark green. And that is going to be how I'm going to draw these. That's how I'm going to do with these trees. And I am going to tap my brush, starting here, creating tree-like rough textured. And I'm starting off with this kind of lighter green here. Okay, so I'm building up the tree-like look. And I like my trees. They can overlap here with the line here, just like in real life. Okay, tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Okay. Now this is the place where I'm not going to have to be constantly wrenching my brushes because I'm playing with all greens, okay? And and they're all going to be mushing together anyway. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of that darker, and I'm going to start to define those trees a little bit, giving it some darkness. And I like to do a little dark on the bottom. That's kind of the negative space in between the trees. Okay. And down at the bottom here. And basically we're building, even if you don't have, I'm going to mix up a little bit more right here. Since we're not doing a completely photorealistic accuracy of a tree that's right in front of us, we're doing the impression of trees, the image of trees, okay? And that is involved lights and darks and texture and shape is what we're aiming at when we're doing these trees, okay? So don't be afraid even if it doesn't look like you don't know where I'm going with this. Okay, so we're adding, tapping in some black. Okay, a little bit of darkness. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the dark evergreens behind, okay? So I'm going to put my brush down and I'm going to go with my round. And this has a nice tip at the top. It's a little more detailed. And the way I'm going to do this is it's going to be really dark and I'm just going to kind of paint tips like this. And my brush is going to go different directions. I'm not going to paint like a triangle. I'm going to kind of make the idea that the tree starts at the top and the leaves and the branches go downward. And I'm going to use a pretty dark color. I'm going to use black with just a little bit of green in it, okay? Because they're kind of far away and they're not very well defined. So that's going to help these trees pop as well. So I'm going to start over here, and it's a triangle-y type shape, but I just hold that brush, okay? And I just tap it, a lot of tapping going on, and holding it, imagining the way evergreens are. And all we have to do is look outside the window because we have so many to look at, which is great. Okay, so I'm just gently tapping dark in a kind of a triangle-y shape. And I'm leaving light in between them. I'm not trying to paint it completely over. And that also is what trees do. And I like to kind of connect them, okay? And also you want them to vary them in size. You don't want to have exactly the same tree. And in some cases, I have a little bit of green that got onto my paint, and I like that. I like how little bits of green show through. And we're just going to tap, tap, tap. And I like also that these trees also aren't going to just completely obey that line. They're going to kind of come on over that line. They're the far away trees from these close-up trees. Here we go. So many trees. One thing I would not do is put your brush in the water, because you're going to lose the texture. And I'd rather have texture than like goopy, wet trees. Okay? Better to use more paint and glob it on than to have it be runny here and loose, because that's not as tree-like. Tap, 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 tap. Tap those trees. And if you squint and stand back a little bit, this is one of my favorite trips. I love to squint. You can see that I'm starting to create texture here along the edges without having to try very hard. So now the shapes of these green trees that are in front are kind of revealed a little bit more. Okay. And now I'm going to just continue to tap more darkness into the green below. So instead of trying to paint trees, I'm painting darks and lights. And your eye will start to see them as trees with the light and the shadow on top of it. Okay, so stand back a little bit, scoot back, and squint, and you're going to see what I'm starting to talk about, how these trees are revealed. Okay, so I'm just adding all sorts of little bits of dark texture, and all that green and black kind of mushes together in different variations of darkness. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and now I'm going to go in with a little bit of, there's little bits of kind of a light greenish yellow. So I'm going to add a little bit of that on top, and it's going to actually tie it together with this, and it's also going to show where the light is hitting this. So I'm going to mix up some green, and I need a little more yellow from here. Okay, let's see, do I like that color? Well, let me tap it down. So I'm just going to just gently tap, tap, tap once again, and that is adding highlights to the trees to just make that light pop a little bit. Okay. Just a bit here. And tapping once again using the style of where you just hold your brush and you just let that paint fall where it may a little bit, and then you can add, if you squint your eyes, you'll be able to see the shapes of these trees better, and you can continue to add details. Don't overpaint. It's a tendency, if you were to spend the next several hours just working on their trees, I would stop and take a break. I would stand back, squint, and look at it. And then I would look at some trees outside so that you don't overpaint, because the tendency is to want to paint it to look like a tree, the tree that you have in your mind's eye. Okay? So just give yourself breaks if you find that you just can't stop working and working and working on this tree. Because the idea is that they look like trees, but when you look at it up close, you can't imagine that it looks like trees. So I'm going to rinse my brush there. And you're just going to be playing with dark, lights, and textured paint for that. All right, so the last thing we're going to work on is, we're going to do a nice clean brush, is work on another layer of white for the mountain. Okay, because we're going to want the mountain wet. The paint nice and wet, and then you have an extra layer of white. Wherever you paint a super bright white is where your eye goes to in the painting. If you have super black or super white, pure white, your eye goes to those spots. Okay, so this is pure white, and this would be overwhelming in a painting if we left it like this. Plus, as we know, Mount Rainier has all these lovely crater shapes. So while the paint is wet, I'm going to take my blue. Actually, I could have taken it from here. And I want it smooth and fairly light, not too dark. And I'm going to paint these shapes. They're kind of funny looking shapes. And I'm painting it dark, wet on wet, because I want it to look flowy. I don't want it to look like a perfect shape, because it's water, right? Frozen water, and it has that element of movement and slight variation that we're trying to achieve. So I get a little more ready, and then I paint it here. And you have your painting in front of you so you can copy the shapes. There's a little bit here in the top, the volcano, and this one goes like this. And as you can see as I'm painting, do you see how it's mixing? Add this here. And if you stand back and the blob looks too weird, like to me this looks like, you know, too dark and too fat. I'm just going to take my paper towel and rub off the parts that I felt like I got the shape wrong or that don't look like a glacier. Ooh, I actually kind of like that. Huh, that was a happy little accident. So I'm going to take some white paint and just kind of mix and move. Okay. I'm going to rinse. And the side mountain over here, I forgot to address earlier, so that is going to be blue. And on top of the blue mountain, I'm going to put a little bit of white. So instead of white putting on blue, it's the opposite. This got a little too wet. Okay. So I'm going to get some straight blue from that container. Make it blue. There we go. And I'm going to paint this up here like that. I like that look a little better. Okay, now I'm going to add a little white to that area. So I take my white, and I'm almost at the very end of my painting, so that's kind of why I just dipped it straight here into the white. And I'm going to add a little bit of snow here and here. And make sure that comes all the way down. I can also add a little bit of variation here in the blue part of the mountain. I'm just adding a little bit of snow, a little bit of soft dusted snow. Okay. And I can smooth it with my fingers. I can wipe it a little bit here to make it nice and soft. Just subtle. Okay. Then I double check if there's any areas that I need to address. One of the things that I like you to think about with your sky is mood. The kind of darker and heavier it is, the moodier it is. Okay? So it can be heavy, dark skies if that's how you're feeling. Or it can be really white, light, and wispy. It can really be really kind of bright and hopeful if you want to do sunrise. The sky gives our feelings. Okay? So the last thing I want to address with this painting is the edges. And in this case, on this painting, I did blue edges. Okay? And what I would recommend doing if you want to do just a one color frame is use your flat brush. And I'm going to do blue. And I just hold my painting like this. Okay? And I paint like this. It's kind of tricky to do this and get the line perfectly right. So this is actually a really nice little, fairly quick, pretty even way of getting your edges painted. So you're going to go, you can make your line afterwards by holding your brush. Okay. Oopsie. There we go. Got a little bit here in this way, so I'll just wipe that up. And you can also frame your canvas when it's all done, but this allows you to just hang it straight on the wall without any other, without any further ado. And so this is just an example holding the brush and just going flat, 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 back and forth. Okay, more blue, nice even blue all the way around. Tap, 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 and clean it, clean your edge, and then you can always take your paper towel to further refine it. And the very last thing, once this is completely dry, I like to take my Sharpie and sign my name at the bottom right corner. And voila, I am finished. Voila! Now's the time to celebrate, to show off your painting, to post it on Facebook, to show your friends and family quite what a beautiful painting you created. And if you enjoyed it, just remember that talent is pursued interest. Anything you're willing to practice, you can do. So I encourage you to join me for my next session next month for a different painting. Same thing with the kit, all the colors, everything decided. And every month there will be a new painting. You can be part of the Painting of the Month Club. And I hope you're proud and enjoyed it. Thank you.